Hey guys, my name is Jen and I am one of the producers here with Everyday Theology, and we are excited because tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of Christmas and holiday traditions, one of which including Santa Claus. So we just wanted to let you know that if you are watching with your kids, maybe you want to press pause or watch later.
So if you want a good life lesson, Jen,
Yes.
just don't ever tell your congregation in a sermon that Santa isn't real.
Oh, wow.
You want to get hate mail?
Okay.
Like, no, I'm not kidding. I don't think I've
gotten.
gotten, well, I did get yelled at in a service once, but that's besides the point.
During the service?
Oh, yeah.
It's because you're out in parents.
I know. And I'm like, I had people who were legit upset. And I'm like, but Santa isn't real. Like, what do you want me to say? Like,
Then why do I see him at the mall every year if he's not real, Jacob? Why do I get presents under the tree from Santa if
I learned
he's
my
not
lesson.
real, Jacob?
I learned my lesson.
Stop ruining fun things for other people.
Oh,
We should just get like a disclaimer right at the beginning of this episode that's like,
Don't let your kids watch
don't
this.
listen with your kids around.
Parental advisory.
Yes,
That would
exactly.
that would
Slap it
actually
on,
be kinda
slap
good.
it on the beginning, 'cause
I'm ready to put parental
otherwise we're gonna be
advisory on
upset.
Everyday
Put some earmuffs on. Like,
Was this like a hybrid service where the kids were in there?
no, it was just a regular service. And my whole point was like how we continue to believe things that aren't true because we like the idea of them more than the actual truth. So I use Santa as an illustration.
Oh man,
Apparently, there's some people that still like
Saint Nick is
like
rolling
Ravae,
over in
who
the
still
North-
likes to believe in Santa.
Santa buys me dope presents every year, so why would I not?
Oh wow. Okay.
Shout out to my
We're
mom.
gonna explore
I
that.
learned my
I
lesson.
need to come to
I
Farmington
have weird
Hills.
origins when it comes to Santa. So it just-
Why don't you tell us
the
about
whole
those,
thing
Jacob?
Is that a trigger for you?
Yeah, for real. Like, I should start twitching over here. Like,
Do you guys, okay, so Jacob and Brandon, you both have children. Do you
Yes.
tell them about Santa Claus?
no. Do you want a longer
Yes,
answer?
I'm just
kind
curious.
of. So mine are from the age of 1 to 14. So we've talked about it. We've talked about Santa, but not like, I guess not a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we don't take, like when I was young, I got taken to the mall to sit in some version of Santa Claus's lap and take pictures and all that kind of stuff. We don't do any of that, but we do talk about Santa and all that with the young ones. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a good friend who like shamed me because I was like, oh, I can't wait. I just, got a white Christmas tree. I'm going to put it up and I'm excited to decorate it because I've never had a white Christmas tree. And she's just like, oh no, we don't do that. We don't do that over here because, it's a pagan tradition and we are celebrating the birth of Jesus over here. And I'm like, oh, I'm celebrating the birth of Jesus too. I just like trees, and so I think it's really good to talk about.
God likes trees too. He
so
made
too.
them.
He does.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because the tree conversation brings up an interesting point because it's actually the tree part of Christmas is not pagan. It's actually a German tradition. I mean, I'm not saying Germans can't be pagans or Americans can't be pagans or anything like that, but
Sorry to our German audience.
but sorry to our one watcher in
Not saying
Germany.
Germans can't be pagan.
But we'll get into it. I did some deep dives.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, let's just get into it because I think a lot of people want to know, like, if I'm a Christian, can I still do certain things that may be rooted in paganism? For even the Easter Bunny, a lot of people will say, well, is that Christian? Should we even be using that? Or what about eggs and candy and things like that? So, yeah, let's just talk about it. What are your thoughts?
Well,
You took the
You
deep
teased
dive.
us.
I did do the deep dive. So I think it's important to give a little context to our conversation. And then I do want to hear your specifically traumatic stories about Christmas. I think we all have a traumatic Christmas story that might be fun to kind of share.
Does anyone not have a traumatic Christmas story?
I don't know.
I don't
think
know.
so.
But the idea of Christmas stems back indeed very, very far to what they call the winter solstice. And the winter solstice, which is like the shortest day of the year, in a lot of the research I did, they talked a lot about how that was a day that farmers celebrated the end of the season, the end of the harvest. And so then they entered into a period of extended time that they could use to celebrate, do a bunch of festivals, feasts, but also ultimately like worship the other pagan gods of these festivals and feasts, like the god of light or whatever it may be. And so in those festivals, they would do that for an extended period of time until what they would say the sun started rising again, and they could go back out and harvest their crops and do what farmers do. I don't know, but I respect it. So that's kind of the start of it. But then it kind of trickled down a little bit into this bleed into Christianity. And that kind of happened around like 300 AD-ish, somewhere in there. Don't quote me specifically.
That was when Constantine came in.
And
you have
officially-
the shift within the empire towards Christianity.
Yes. So, but what that came from, this idea of Christmas came from that idea of this winter solstice and the celebrating of the God of light and the celebration of light, to take into fact that Jesus said he was the light of the world. So Christmas itself, in a Christian mindset, was actually adapted from this pagan ritual of the winter solstice. So, and then there's been different stems that have come out of it, like the idea of gift giving came from the Romans celebrated the planet Saturn. And they called it like
Saturnalia, Saturnalia or something.
I was
like
hoping
that.
somebody else would say it because I was
I
about
probably
to
was just
why we
butcher
looked at
it.
Brandon.
Yeah, and they're going to make that into some type
But
of
they did
meme
it,
or
and the
something
goal
like
of that was you gave a small gift to someone in exchange for like good luck, good virtue, good value. And then that idea stemmed into this Christmas tree thing where they would decorate their Christmas trees with holly and different fruits, I believe it was. And that was supposed to usher in good luck into in the new season, year, whatever. So that's kind of the small but yet exhaustive
Well, listen,
history of.
Well, you convinced me. I'm done with Christmas.
Yeah.
So that's good. Thanks. Thanks, Ravae.
You further
That's
traumatized.
right. Yeah, like
That was a good. Yeah, they don't call her Dr. Ravae Wilson for nothing.
Dr. Ravae Wilson, ladies and gentlemen.
Should I write another dissertation and do it on the origins of Christmas?
But one interesting thing to add to that is there's a lot of confusion and conversation, around the date itself. So some people, like the vast majority, I'm sure you can catch some Christians on the fringe who think that the December 25th is the actual like undisputed birth date of Jesus, but
it's not.
yeah,
It's not. I did a single chair on it.
I just burst.
Stay
We need to
tuned.
put another exclaimer at the beginning of this episode about that. But the way that we got to the date of December 25th is that there was this tradition in early church history that they believed that when a prophet died, he died on the day that he was conceived. Not that he was born, but that he was conceived. It was believed, and actually one of the church fathers, what's his name, Julius Africana, he said back in, I think it was 221, that the church believed that Jesus died on March 25th. So if they believe he was conceived on that date, count 9 months forward, and you get December 25th. So that's how we got on the date of like December 25th. But even in saying that, no one actually believes that undisputably that this is his actual birth date, because they weren't even keeping records like that for the most part,
So
for common
if the
folks'
date's wrong, the origins are all sorts of mixed from all sorts
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually then? I mean, do you just like what do we do? Like,
Yeah.
do you just say, this is?
Well, I think there's a few different things to take into consideration. I mean, I think that if this is kind of that season where we celebrate that, honor that, look to that, I think that if you do just that, bring Jesus into those celebrations, bring Jesus into what you're doing. Yes, you can have fun traditions and things like that, which we can even do a deep dive on the origins of Santa Claus, because that was really fun too.
I just kind of like Ravae's deep dives. I just want to hear another Ravae deep
So we have
dive.
Brandon's word of the day and Ravae's deep dives. What do you do, Jacob?
I just sit here. So I'm just eye candy. That's what I'm part of this. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true at all.
Yeah, we got to do something with that.
You're not supposed to laugh that hard.
Jay's already ready. Look at him.
Jay's like, I'm about to clip this out so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that like it's the same thing with everything. Like everything, if you date it back far enough, has pagan traditions and pagan culture and pagan whatever. And I think it's just the way that you bring your faith into it. Like, you know, if Jen wants to get a Christmas tree, that's totally fine. Get a Christmas tree, decorate it. It brings you joy, but remember that joy comes from Jesus this holiday season and beyond. So that's like the short answer. I don't know. For me, what do you guys think of that as like you have kids?
I mean, I think in some ways it begs the question of how does Christianity engage cultural practices in general?
Yeah. Right.
So there's obviously the idea, I mean, even from these origins, there's the idea of like you could just reject them outright, which is an option. But I think there were decisions made along the way to say, how do we actually transform these to be Christ-centered? So to see what the value of this is, but actually to move it towards a more Christ-centered practice, which is another way of engaging culture. It's not to outright reject it, but to actually see Christ transform it. And I think that's where when you look at Christmas, you can be upset by the pagan origins of some of what we practice within traditions now, or you can say, or is there a way in which that's actually transformed to help us just recenter back on Christ? So yeah, is December 25th the exact day that Jesus was born? No. But was Jesus born? Was the incarnation a big deal? Was he the light of the world? Yes. So why can't we transform that to actually recenter ourselves on that? I think that's always been a Christian perspective, is not just outright rejecting the culture that we engage, but actually seeing it transform to be recentered on Christ. And so that's why I don't think we have to be like upset with some of the origins of some of our traditions in Christmas. The better question is, have we transformed them to center on Christ, and is that helping us in our worship and glory of him?
Yeah, yeah. And to your point, yes, that maybe appropriation of some cultural or pagan things. Maybe that's not the right word, but you know what I mean. It kind of dovetails with what you're saying there. I mean, one of the things I like about what you said there is that, like, are we using it to like more focus on Christ and be Christ-centered? I mean, Paul did this in Acts chapter 17, his Mars Hill address. He actually quotes two pagan poets, Epimenides and Aratus, and he uses that as a bridge in his in talking about the whole biblical redemptive story without actually quoting Bible verses, I might say, to this audience of what were the two groups? The Stoics and the Epicureans and other philosophers that were around who believed diametrically opposing, ideas and whatnot. So he appropriated this pagan cultural poets for this conversation. And I mean, there's other aspects of Christianity too. For example, circumcision. Circumcision didn't start as a Jewish practice. It precedes that in a bunch of other pagan cultures, but Yahweh used that as a sign, a covenantal sign, of one's fidelity to him. Or even like baptism. Baptism goes back way further than the Hebrew scriptures and whatnot. So to your point, it is true. How can we take these parts of culture and things and then use them to bring the light to Jesus?
Yeah, I think that brings it to a bigger conversation too of like, how are we bridging that gap or opening the door to gospel conversations with people? And I think that, if we're one of those people who fall in the camp that's like, no Christmas decorations, no this, no that, which if that's your conviction, like, I'm not going to call you out on your conviction, but like, if we're doing all of that, it kind of, to me, puts up this wall of like anything that is commercialized Christmas or anything that like brings about the joy or festivus of the season, it almost makes it seem like I can't invite you to be a part of my Christmas celebrations because you're so anti this, or like I'm not welcome in your home because I put up a Christmas tree or a stocking with my initial and my dog's paw on it. Okay, like I do that. And,
no judgment.
Thank you.
Maybe slightly.
But like, it's just one of those things. It's like, how can I take what Jesus embodied, this Christmas season and turn it into those moments where you're inviting people into your home, you're sharing meals together, you're talking about Christmas, but then you're also pointing back to Jesus's birth and why you celebrate, why maybe you put out a manger scene, why you know, this is your favorite ornament or whatever, and sharing those stories and have those conversations with people, because I think that welcomes, I mean, it's like the most welcoming season, I feel like. So why would we not use that opportunity to share the gospel with others while we're decorating a tree together, decorating Christmas cookies of little creepy Santas or snowmen, you know, like, I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that issue of heart and purpose, right? If there's elements within our engagement with traditional practices around Christmas that help us in worshiping God and being missional for him, why would we not engage that, right? I mean, those things, to me, I think it always comes back to that lens of, is this helping me move closer to the Lord or not, right? So some of that, the joy of decorating a Christmas tree with my kids and pulling out the different ornaments and sharing memories of when they made that or why we got this or whatever, like, that's a beautiful expression of family. That's which God created. It's a joy of memory and a joy of traditional things that we go into. Like that's an act to me of worship and life in the way God give it to it. Or like you said, to embrace things that help us be missional, you know, in the world and engaging. And if we're so staunch and rigid that it somehow hinders that we should be careful of that. On the flip side, though, also recognizing that there's things within traditions that are within the culture that can actually not help us in living out the life that God calls. Some of the consumerism that we've seen in Christianity, some of the works righteousness that Santa seems to point us towards, this like, you be good and then you get good things, and if you're bad, then you don't, like, which is actually anti-gospel. It's not really the
Which
truth of the
ironically is
gospel.
not the origins of Santa.
No, but it's part of the narrative now.
Right. I mean, because Santa gave to the poor. Like, he was named after Saint Nick.
Yeah, he was a real person.
Who was the patron saint of children and mostly poverty-stricken children. But before Saint Nick, there was actually a bearded man. And I feel like you especially are going to love this.
Because I have a beard?
No, not you so much. No, you'll see in a minute.
I've tried.
There was an older bearded man that kind of had that Santa feel in the pagan culture, and his name was Odin.
Oh.
So Thor's dad was Santa Claus.
Yes.
Yes, which I knew you would like.
He was played by Kurt Russell, and
No, that's a different one.
Wrong.
Oh, that's different. Odin.
That's Guardians of the Galaxy. He was played by Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Who also I feel like could be Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, just fun fact. But it's interesting that you say that too, is that it's that idea of like, are we telling our kids, like, if you're bad, you don't get this, and if you're good, you do get this, which, like you said, is very anti-Christian, because Jesus is like, you're all bad, so I'm going to die for your sins so you can have something that you don't deserve at all, you know, which is eternal life.
Yeah.
And the redemption of sin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And back to your point, actually connecting both of your points there, the missional point. We can't be so afraid of culture that we don't engage in culture, right? The Great Commission calls us to engage in the culture, and part of that engagement is meeting people, you know, where they're at. And again, to your point, if you're so like standoffish, it has any types of pagan elements or origins or whatever in it. By the way, Christmas, Halloween, and Easter, none of these have like really undisputed, like there's a lot of different myths and stuff like that attached to each of these. So it's not like there's like strong historical ties to paganism for any of these. You know what I mean? Like all of it is a little bit up in the air. So I think that we shouldn't worry about it from that standpoint, but we do have to make sure that we're engaging our community. And oftentimes that means like engaging in some of these as well. And then to your point, I guess to both of your points as well, this is an opportunity for us to disciple our own family and our children. We started off talking about our kids. Like, what does Christmas say? What does gift giving say about, about us as Christians, about stewardship, like you said, about works works righteousness, or whatever that might be. So we have an opportunity to engage not only externally but also internally our family around these as well. So.
And that's where I think having that lens of, when it comes to cultural traditions and practices, the lens of transformation to me becomes a helpful lens with my family, with my kids, with life, right? Like, it's not to reject it outright. It's not to accept it wholeheartedly. It's to receive it in a way that says, how do I transform this in a way to help me in my life and journey of following Jesus? So there's things that I can accept that are good, and then there's things that, let's have the conversation about Santa. Let's have the conversation about some of these cultural things that we engage. And I think if we're able to say Christ transforms culture, he takes what's good of it and he makes it better, and he takes what's bad of it and he turns it towards his way, then that can be a way we can embrace those sort of cultural practices as well. At least I find that to be a helpful lens for me.
Yeah, and I think it is. It's your heart posture. It really is. I mean, like I said in pre-filming, I still get presents from Santa. Shout out to Santa for my Pottery Barn towels he got me last year. They're very nice. Thanks, Mom.
That's right.
I don't think there's anything.
The truth comes out.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. For me, it's fun. Like, I don't look at it and be like, "Ooh, Santa came down the chimney and gave me this gift and blah 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 blah." I think it's just part of the joy and experience that, like, gift giving gives. I love, one of my favorite things in the entire world is watching people open presents. Like, I love seeing what people get and the joy on their face. I personally hate when people watch me open presents because I have, like, gift opening anxiety, where, like, I literally feel like, am I being too expressive? Am I not expressive enough? Like, so I kind of panic a little bit sometimes because I'm like, but I love watching other people do it because it's the joy. Like, you spent time picking out something for your kids or your spouses or whoever that that they wanted and they're gonna love, hopefully most of the time. But, like, you just do that, and there's something about watching that brings joy. And I feel like that joy can be tied back to Jesus, and I don't feel like that's a bad thing to celebrate during the Christmas season or even during Easter with Easter baskets or whatever. Like, I think there's certain things that if you're going into it and you have the right mindset of, I'm not being consumeristic, I want, and I need, like, whether I get this gift or not, my life is still going to be fine. But I think it's that joy of someone thought of you and knew you would like this and then gifted it to you, I think is a really pretty beautiful thing.
Yeah, you're right.
I was just going to say, I completely agree. I think the one thing we want to be careful of is just that they don't distract us, right?
True.
That I think is where it can often become, where instead of keeping Christ the point, they become the point. And that's a fine balance to walk within our own hearts. It's a fine balance to walk at times within our families, even as well, as you try to navigate, is to say, like, yeah, like you're saying, like, see the joy of it, embrace that, let it lead. Be careful it doesn't distract us, because I can see that kind of moving that way as well, right? That's why there's a nuance to this.
Yeah, and that was the exact same point I was about to make. Like, essentially, that whatever our life rhythms are, whether it be around holidays, whether it be around our work environment, whatever, it should always be rooted in Christianity and in our fidelity to Christ. So, is what I'm doing reflecting my ambassadorship, my discipleship to Christ? Not am I, like, just latching Christ on to something that I want to do. Like, as long as it's rooted in Christ and it's bringing him glory, then I think it's nothing wrong with it. And to go back to, like, the beginning, like, what we do with our family is we always, like, read different passages around, like, Jesus's birth and stuff like that, and talk about that. But even, like, the Santa Claus thing, like I said that, we do talk to our kids about it. It's mostly because, like, they just love, like, the different, like, Christmas movies and stuff like that. So they see Santa on there, but we don't, like, have any gifts that say from Santa or anything like that. It's from mom or dad or from your brother.
I want
or
that
sister.
credit, man. I'm not giving that to Santa.
That's right. I'm working hard.
No, I'm working hard. I want the credit.
I worked hard for it. But I'd love to hear, if you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear. Well, you say you guys don't talk to your kids, or you don't.
No, we did. We just always from the very get-go told our kids, this is a fun story. This is a fun story around Christmas, just like any story. So it was never this embrace of, this is true, this is real, this is a real person. It was always just, this is a good, fun story around Christmas, around gifts. Like, you know, and even then, I just remember our youngest son, Xavier, went through a phase where he just, he was like, no, Santa is real. And I'd be like, no, he's not. Like, yes, he is. Like, we would, you know, because there's just this like kind of, but I just, for me, and I always want to be careful, so I'm not trying to be dogmatic here. For me, I know that there's a lot of people that will challenge Jesus as a myth, like Santa is a myth.
Yeah.
And I didn't want, as a parent, to from the get-go shape my children to think I'm teaching you about something that's real that's actually not. Mm-hmm. I wanted to disciple them to say, what I'm teaching you, what I'm leading you in, is what I believe is genuine and true and real and the best of what I think who God is, what the world, like all of that. So that's where I just was careful. For me, was careful with that. And that's not to dog on anyone that does different, but just that was my own conviction when it came to my kids.
Well, and I think sometimes too, like I grew up and my mom, dad, and I are believers, and my dad's whole extended family, who we spend a majority of Christmases with, are not. And so then there was always that balance growing up too of like, well, grandma's going to give you gifts from Santa. Uncle so-and-so is going to give you a gift from Santa. Oh, Santa's coming. I mean, mind you, my grandma had this antique Santa that sat at like the top of the staircase at our family's cabin. And it was the creepiest thing of my entire life. Like, it freaked me out so much that I'm like, if that's what Santa looks like, I don't want anything to do with that man.
Is that like the elf on the shelf kind of thing?
Yeah, it was like it was like those, you know, like 1940s where they had like the porcelain face and then the squishy bodies. Yeah. Like it was, that's my traumatizing Christmas story. But like, you know, so there was always that balance too of like having fun as kids and sparking our imagination, but like also knowing like, hey, this is about Jesus. This is about, you know, we're here as a family, like celebrating Christmas together and all of that. So I think there is that balance too. Plus, you don't want your kid to be that kid at school who's like, Santa isn't real, and then everybody hates them.
Yeah.
It's like, just teach your kids if Santa's not real to just like talk about that in
Keep
the walls of your home.
So.
Trying to point people to Jesus, not make them not want to talk to us, because all we're doing is telling them things aren't real.
Yeah, and it's a fine balance to walk, right?
Yeah.
That's where I think there's nuance in how we engage some of this. I think we have to be careful. I think we do need to walk in conviction. I think that's one of the things, all of us, that I would encourage anybody that's listening is like, take time to think some of this stuff through. Mm-hmm. Don't just wholeheartedly accept it or wholeheartedly reject. Like, take your own time to kind of formulate, what do I think, like you said, in my discipleship, in what it means to follow Jesus, how this stuff integrates. Because I think the worst thing we can do is just be thoughtless. Mm-hmm. Like, when we're thoughtless cultural consumers, that has the ability to affect our discipleship more than anything. Mm-hmm. But where we're thoughtful, I think we can genuinely see Christ transform what we engage and how we live and how we practice. Yeah,
I totally agree. John Piper wrote on his Desiring God website, he wrote a really great article about like what his family does at Christmas time and the traditions they do, and we'll link it in the copy of this episode. But I think it's like a really good guideline where he says like, yeah, we still decorate the tree, but these are a few other things that maybe we don't do because it could be that distraction, or it could make people come in thinking that, oh no, Jesus isn't the prime thing of this season. He said, but you know, like they're very intentional even in what they put out on their yard for Christmas and making sure that people know that like, yes, we're celebrating Christmas, but my decorations are intentional to point you to the true meaning of this season and to Jesus and his birth and his coming and his redemption for the world. And so I think that's really a good balance, I think, for Christians.
Yeah. I think what Jacob said about the reason behind his conviction is one of the best that I've ever heard. I hear people, or I'll say, I hear Christians a lot try to kind of force their own convictions on other Christians and kind of shame them. Again, as I mentioned, not that my friend was intending to do that, but she was very strong. Shame. She was she was strong language. But yeah, just having the balance, but having your own conviction around it, and then being able to explain why you think, not just, no, we don't do that because that's what the world does and we don't do that. But having a reason behind it is such an easy doorway to then, again, just giving people the gospel, because you never know, you know, like, I'm still thinking about what you said. I'm like, wow, that seems so simple. Like, why have I never thought about that? You know, people are always going to challenge Jesus as this, you know, oh, he was a legend and he did this, and, you know, but like, yeah, we don't want people thinking that Jesus and Santa Claus can kind of fall in the same pot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So side note,
Okay.
real tree or fake tree? This is an ongoing debate in my house every year.
Okay, so here's in my house. So because we went out west to visit my dad's side of the family through my entire childhood into high school and college, we had a fake tree at home because we were never home for Christmas, and nobody wants to clean that up, like come home to like a bunch of dead pines.
Yeah.
But at my grandparents' cabin, we had a real tree. But in my
You got the best of both.
yeah, I got
worlds.
the best.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, I actually have she cute. She's like a little fake tree, and
You
I
got
love
like a
her.
little Charlie Brown tree.
Well, no, she's cute. She's not
Okay.
ugly.
His wasn't ugly in the end.
I mean, okay.
It was like one of those little dogs with the tongue hangs out the side. It's
Oh,
beautiful to
they're
someone,
cute.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Bethany and Penny. But yeah, so I feel like I like both. I don't want to clean up pine needles, and like I don't want
fair.
my dog drinking out of the sap bowl. Like, to me, it's all about convenience.
Another reason to not.
Here's
have a
another
dog.
shocker.
You
Some
give me more and more every time.
Thank you,
I
thank
thank
you.
you.
Sometimes when I put out my Christmas decorations, sometimes I don't even put out the tree. Some years I don't. So it just depends on my mood, what I'm feeling.
You just hang them on the wall, or
No, I don't put out ornaments. I just like put out some of my decorations and not the tree. It just depends what I'm feeling, what I'm vibing,
what kind of mood you're in.
what kind of mood I'm in.
We at the Cleaver household, we do the fake tree, not because we prefer it over the real thing, but I got 4 kids. We balling on the budget, so I'm not trying to buy a new tree every year. It's as
Yeah,
simple
those
as
things
that.
are expensive.
They
Yes,
are.
they
I was
are.
gonna say that's a budget question right
and
there.
That is a budget.
That's
thing.
And
not
they
a
make you
preference.
do it. Like, do you know how much work
Well,
it is to get a real
it depends,
tree?
though.
Like, you have to get in your car.
Yes.
Drive to Home Depot
No.
and actually buy it.
No. Like a real tree, you have to get in your car, go to like Blake's Farms or wherever. You have to bring your own saw, cut your tree down, and then figure out how you're going to attach it to your car, then drive it home, figure out if it's going to fit. Like, no, it's too much
You don't
work.
have to do that. That's why they
Nobody
have
has time
tree
for
lots.
that.
That's
Yeah.
why they have tree lots.
Like, I know, but even then, it's still a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. I won't disagree.
It's more work
won't
than I
disagree.
want to do.
Fake
That's
tree.
right.
Well, I already
Fake.
exposed myself. I have a white tree. You guys already know.
Yeah.
What about you? You didn't answer. You
Oh,
said it's an ongoing debate in your house.
It is, because I've wanted a fake tree for years for all the reasons that you mentioned. But Alicia has always had a real tree growing up, and it's like one of her standard family traditions, and we've adopted it. And so I try to convince her every year to go fake, but I've come to love the smell of a real tree.
Yeah.
I actually do enjoy the work only because it's like kind of a family kid,
Yeah.
help get the tree, take that day kind of thing. But
Yeah.
the pine needles get
Okay.
little annoying, but
That
it's
makes me
nice.
I think this is fun since we're, in the Christmas season and in the Christmas spirit.
Traditions.
I do want to know, like, what is one, like, you two, Jen, what is like one just different Christmas tradition your family does that's not like your typical.
Oh yeah, I got a good one. You
Go.
want to go?
Okay, well, mine's probably kind of boring, but we so and here.
Okay, so then you go first, Brandon.
Yeah, get this out of the way. So we're here in Michigan, and there's a town called Frankenmuth. It's a little German town, and it has the Bronner's, which is the largest Christmas store in, I think, the United States. And so we go up there every year around Christmas and pick out like one new ornament that kind of encapsulates the year for us. So
That's
No,
cute.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
great.
I like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And Frankenmuth is great.
I love.
I love the chicken dinners up there.
They're good.
And Splash Village. Shout out. Jen, what about you?
One, my mom and I, we always make enough oatmeal scotchies to feed the entire neighborhood, and we buy the actual like Christmas tins, the cookie tins, and put them in and like go and give them to everyone in the neighborhood. And my brothers, I have 2 older brothers, and their favorite Christmas tradition is texting me on Christmas Eve what they should buy my parents, and I love it every single year.
Nothing like the
That's
last
solid.
minute.
Yeah.
Our family, as far as I can remember, we actually eat Mexican food, like homemade enchiladas. Like we make the enchilada sauce, dip the tortillas in it, chop the onions, cheese. Like we eat a full Mexican dinner every Christmas Eve.
This is so ironic because that's exactly my family's tradition.
Really?
Since I was like a kid, we
you guys
always
related?
do Mexican dinner
Are we
on
siblings?
Christmas Eve.
Were you at my
There's a
Christmas?
dog.
Do you
Yeah,
know
that's
about the
all
creepy Santa Claus?
No. So that's what we always, and we still do. And like every Christmas Eve now, because my brothers and sisters are scattered all over the country and world, we like always text each other pictures of our like Mexican dinner
I
that
love
our
that,
families are like
yeah.
all eating. That's always.
We still do that now. We don't, since all of us grandkids are older and my grandparents have passed away, we still do that. Like my uncle and his family will eat Mexican. Like we'll eat Mexican here in Michigan, and the tradition lives on.
I didn't know anyone else had that, so that's
Yeah.
awesome. So I remember one time when I was in college, Alicia and I were dating. I went down to her family and they weren't doing Mexican. And I was like, I got to have Mexican. So I literally got out chips and salsa just to say
thought you were gonna
I
say
kept the tradition alive.
I
So-
thought you were going to say, so I drove through the Taco Bell
yeah.
drive-through.
No, I actually did try that one Christmas Eve, but they're not open. So that was a bummer. I was
man.
like,
Good to
oh.
know.
Before we close, I just want you guys to know the video team wants to express our deep regret of a missed opportunity to not have you all dress festive and have Christmas lights. So
Oh, well, it's okay. Maybe we can put some in post. But that does
that's
say from all of us
Shout
here
Can you just
at
give us a good
Everyday-
frame, Jay, or something? So yeah.
Hey, I'm trying to wish everyone
Oh,
a Merry
I
Christmas,
saw
okay? I'm just, like from our Everyday Theology family to your family, we just want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. And let us know in the comments, what are some of your crazy Christmas traditions? We would love to engage in conversation with you about them. We can't wait to see you in 2024.
thanks for watching Everyday Theology. For more content like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.